Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I want to do an everyday wearable witchy makeup look. So really leaning into like a dark lip, a little bit of smoky eye, but the idea today is really taking inspo from the witch aesthetic but bringing it into a more wearable context. So whether you just like this kind of makeup look or maybe this year on Halloween you want to dress up as a witch, add a little hat, but you don't want to go so overboard into costume territory. You just want to have that kind of vampy and sensuous feel. That's what today's makeup look is going to be all about. And yeah, I might get a little bit chatty about this time of year, Halloween and Samhain for those who celebrate, because it's a beautiful time of year and there's so much mystery to it and I love it. So yeah, that's the plan for today. Keep on watching if you want to see more. Starting with blush, I'm going to use the Luna Roots Color Magic in Inner Embers. This is like a rich blood red. And I love this shade. I think it's so romantic. And it's hella pigmented. So I'm just dabbing it on slightly, building it up slowly, and doing my favorite blush placement where you go quite a bit lower. I feel like a lot of the time I'm like talking about doing a really blushy moment, but then I look back on the footage and it's not as blushy as it looks in person. So I don't know. Today, maybe I'll go a little more all out so that on camera it still looks quite flushed. I like the idea of like a dark red blush for a witchy look because it's very lusty and sensuous. I do think of the witch aesthetic as embodying that, especially in the context of like women taking back their power. So I think of shades like a blood red, very vampire-esque as well, you know? Yes, a lot of blush. It's showing up on the camera. As I really always do, just taking the foundation brush and buffing out those edges. Probably goes without saying, but foundation, brows are on. Used a little bit of bronzer, the Vive bronzer, just to shape out the face a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna go in for a vampy lip today. This is one of my all-time favorite vampy lip shades. It's from Melt, and it was from the collab with Bailey Sarian, and it's the shade Hemlock. It is such a beautiful shade, and you'll see it in a moment, but it's limited edition, which is a bummer because every time I've worn this in like a reel or something on Instagram, people are like, what is that? I'm like, this shade is discontinued or limited edition. So petitioning Melt to bring it back because it's a gorgeous vampy shade. I'll tell you why in a moment. And if you know any dupes, once you see it on me, drop it in the comments below because I'd like to know. Should I ever lose that or go through it? To start, I'm going to use Versatile Chestnut as the liner. And I'm going to go heavy-handed with it. Sometimes I kind of tentatively use this, but I'm using the side. And I'm going to press pretty hard because we're going for a dark lip. Okay, let's get into this shade. So what I like about it is a lot of the time you might get a dark vampy red lip and it leans purple. Like at its base, if you really sheared it out, it would be purple. That happens a lot. I don't know why I'm choosing to talk while I do this, but this has like a brown base to it, a dark red. It doesn't lean into that purpley territory. And it's kind of hard to come by a dark lipstick shade like that. Yeah, so if anybody knows any dupes for this, like really I'd say a warm, dark, vampy red lipstick, drop it below. Because other people want to know too, on top of myself. So just powdering a little bit, even on top of the blush. I'm going to try out this highlighter again. This is from Rituel. It's Moonlit Creature. So it's a very cool, very mystical highlighter because it has a purple reflect in it. It looks like kind of mysterious moonlight. So we'll see how it looks today. The other day I wore it in, I think it was the Arwen inspired makeup look, and then I put Rare Beauty highlighter on top of it, and that was a mistake. I didn't realize how good it actually looked until I looked back on my footage. Because sometimes you just want that ethereal, soft glow, and like you can't always see the angle of your glow, like when you're moving your head, and I thought it wasn't that noticeable, and then I saw on camera, I was like, that is so pretty. Why did I put Rare Beauty highlighter on top of it? And I thought it looked kind of strange at first with the purple tone on my skin, but no, I think it looks cool and very suitable for the witch, the feeling of otherworldliness. And that can be a fun like element to throw in your makeup look if you're doing anything thematic, like something witchy. You just kind of have these elements that are, yeah, a bit strange. And it's just subtle enough that it's more like the energy of it rather than being a super obvious, like, I am dressed like a witch. You know what I mean? Can you see that purple reflect? So cool. I want to do a taupey gray smoky-ish eye with this. Nothing super, super dark and overwhelming, but enough of a smokiness that it feels a little vampy, a little witchy. So I'm thinking of delving back into this palette I was really obsessed with at the beginning of fall, the Glaminatrix Barely Basic. These gray shades are really pretty. I also have the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude here because there's some gray taupey shimmers and stuff here. So I'll probably use both. I'm going to start out with, actually no, let's just put on a bright old base like I love to do almost every makeup look. Let's put Girl Dinner all over the lid. And actually, I'm going to use a dense brush. Yeah, using a dense brush for this. In particular, making sure my inner corner is nice and bright before I even go in. And going across the lid. Now I'm going to go in with this shade here, Share, and start to add some depth into the look. I'd say this shade leans like a little cool, but as a taupe in general rather than a gray, it lends itself to being more neutral rather than super cool. So it can be nice for people with neutral undertones or just more approachable across the board. So just really focusing it in there and then diffusing. I think it's nice to use a shadow like this that's a little bit kind of, what am I thinking, like gray skies. This time of year, if you want to celebrate it more than Halloween and integrate some Samhain rituals or just in general, it's a great time of year to think about moving away from summer, and it's the end of harvest season, so we're really just like hunkering down. So a little bit of, you know, candle magic, as simple as lighting candles in your home, can just really make you start to feel cozy and like prep you for the coming cold, darkness ahead of us. And like honoring your ancestors, anybody who's passed. Sometimes nice to just have these reminders to do things like that. Take moments to slow down, to think about the year, to think about, yeah, those who've passed. Yeah, I really like to just honor nature and what it's doing and really do the same thing as nature as best as I can in this capitalist world. Just using this as an opportunity to, you know, find an evening to just bake goods and sit down and watch spooky movies. And my friend and I have had this tradition since COVID where we choose like a dessert to make and a food to make, and it's all very harvest themed. It's just finding moments for that. Maybe you bake a recipe of like your grandmothers who passed and just like honoring family that way. I had a thought. Should I keep this all matte? I busted out the Natasha Denona to add some shimmer, but it's been a long time since I did a fully matte look. I don't know. We'll see. I'll decide in a second. Let's go into this shade here, Looks. It's definitely a lot darker, but what I like about it is that it's not a pure black. It can be nice to deepen with shades like that. So you can have, I don't know, it just doesn't feel as intense, you know? That was probably a stupid brush to use for this because I can't really get wedged into the lash line, so I'll also take this. Really just like playing with that shape right now of like kind of the outer V and a little bit into the crease. And just going between those two shades. If I do decide to keep this all matte, I feel like it's like really about getting the blend nice, not rushing it. It's kind of 90s too. What better to do a wearable witch look, and it's kind of got a 90s influence. 90s was like the pinnacle of witch pop culture. Pop-o-culture. I feel like maybe we're getting it back a little bit. There's definitely this resurgence and interest. Agatha All Along was a fun, campy series that just was released. But there's something about 90s witches we all love, eh? And this is actually, yeah, really inspired by that. Even this looks so 90s. And then I like to take a fluffy brush, really, really fluffy one, and that will help the blend. How many of you were so obsessed with Halloween growing up? I'd love to know how many people on my algorithm I've attracted who have this similar undying love for it. Oh my God. It's still my favorite time of year, but like as a kid, Halloween, it was just the best. What are some of your favorite costumes from when you were a kid? Oh, you know what's so great too about this time of year is just like the playful energy, like when people dress up, and some people like you don't expect to get like really into costumes. It's so fun. Okay, what I'm liking about this look so far is like the way the upper lid has most of the weight and the smokiness, but I do want to balance it a little bit. So I'm going to put a bit of the shade from the Natasha Denona palette, Mesh, and just put a little bit of eyeshadow there. But I don't want the lower lash line to be like super smoky, just enough that it's helping to literally balance it. Sometimes I think of it like a actual scale, and like I don't want it to fully tip over here. Instead, like, you know. And then lately what I've really been liking is taking a bit of the darkest shade that's happening here and like not bringing it across the whole lash line, just keeping it in the corner there. Okay, to shimmer or not to shimmer? Because then I saw this shade here, and then Natasha Denona, and it's like kind of that same purpley pink iridescence as the highlighter, and I feel like that will look cool. So I might try this. It's not an overwhelming shimmer, it's more like a sheen, and it's the shade Mia, and I just think it might integrate that little bit of purpley reflect if we have a little bit of it going on the eyes. But rather than putting it all over the lid and making this feel super sparkly, I'm just gonna focus it right there. It's this little iridescent sheen. Although keeping this matte would look really cool. And I'm also gonna take that on the lower lash line like this. This can be a fun opportunity to go a little bit more like lower. Kind of adds that little bit of costumey element, like it's a little more dramatic. I'm gonna pop off camera and do my lashes, see if there's any other finishing touches I wanna do to this look or any changes once the lashes are on, and finish it off with a fragrance inspired by the Everyday Witch. So I will be one moment. Okay, and here's where we're at after the lashes. I am really liking it, and I can't really think of anything else to do with it. Like I said, I want to kind of keep it wearable in some ways. So as much as this is a vampy makeup look for sure, I just don't feel like it's too overwhelming or anything. So let's finish it off with a couple things, one of which being a fragrance. I'm getting into fragrances insofar as I've ordered a lot of samples recently from like indie perfumeries and stuff. So this one I have here is from a place called Libertine fragrance. It's Canadian. I'm Canadian. This one's called Troubled Spirits, and they say it's a boozy scent with notes of orange zest, whiskey, oak barrel, dried fruit, amber, incense, and patchouli. Did I say it's called Troubled Spirits? Perfect for a witch, right? Anyway, I hate the smell of bourbon and whiskey, like at least on its own. Like I do love an old fashioned when you have that orangey sort of sweetness happening with it, but on its own, like bourbon, I'm like, oh, is this gonna be gross? Anyway, the orange zest comes through for me. I'm gonna spray this. I tried this early this morning, and let's try it again. A little more heavy-handed. It feels very like Christmassy time. And I don't want to delve into Christmas too much, but it's like that movement into the season of like spices and smoke. That's what I'm getting from this fragrance. I love when they have like little descriptions and like it's so evocative. So here's how the perfumery describes this. Shared mischief and good trouble. A flask of bourbon hidden under a winter coat. A parting kiss in a coat room. A glass of wine too many. Secrets spilled out over an evening all over your best friend's floor. So fun, right? So it's got this also like touch of something incensey. I guess that would be like, yeah, they say amber, incense, patchouli. And yeah, it's heady, but not overwhelmingly so because you get that freshness from the orange. Anyway, I'm so new to scents, just kind of getting into it, but that's what I'm getting from it. I'm not great at like distinguishing specific notes in fragrance, more like the general feeling of it. So if you have any tips for how to like really distinguish notes, let me know. And then let's just quickly look at this look. If you wanted to do it for Halloween with a witch's hat, which are so accessible, right? You can just grab it at the dollar store if you need a quick costume. Maybe you're handing out candy to kids. Maybe you're just going to a party. We got the witchy vibes. We are a sexy witch. We got crystals, and I feel like it's given everyday witch. What would your witch self wear on an everyday basis? Ask yourself that, and you'll have the answer to what type of makeup to wear. This was a fun one. Yeah, let me know in the comments down below what you're doing this year for either Halloween or Samhain. I know some of you celebrate things in witchy ways as well, so I'd love to know. Yeah, I'll definitely be handing out some candy. We get like 10 kids, not even. But in the day, probably just taking some time to either do some baking, some kind of, lighting of candles, and just thinking about coming darkness time of year, thinking about my ancestors and grandparents who've come before me, and just taking that little bit of pause and definitely like a walk outside. Something as simple as that can be great. Let me know your Halloween plans. And yeah, Toasty, let's take it away. So that's it for today. Thank you so much to everybody for watching until the end. It really helps support the channel. Hey, maybe one day I'll be able to support my son off this channel. Here's hoping. Here's for a little bit of magic and manifestation in that department. But your watching really helps, and I really appreciate it. And until next time, may you all find yourselves a little bit of makeup magic. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye, witches.